Welcome back to the Purpose Podcast. My name is Travis Holt, and I'm a man of action. I walk with growth, honor, and faithfulness. I'm a warrior, ignited with purpose from the One Most High. So I have something I wanted to share with y'all today, and I think God's really spoke this in my heart today, and tell you guys that this is your wake-up call. It's time to wake up. God has called you to be great, and He needs you to be great. He needs you to live a life of influence and be able to influence others. And y'all are probably wondering, where are you at right now? Why are you outside? It's because I was trying to go to the normal little studio that I was in, because we're at an apartment complex, and I was trying to go in this little studio, and there's about 100 kids at the pool just, blasting music, so we couldn't go in there. So this is your wake-up call. You can either be like them and you can go join the pool party, or you can open up your eyes and wake up and be somebody great. And it starts today. Whenever you're hearing this, it starts today. It's time to wake up and change, or you can just be normal like everybody else. Those are your two options. The way I picture it, there's two paths you can choose. There's two paths. The left side is like this just revolving treadmill, And what happens is there's a huge line, and that's the easy path. That's the way when everybody wants to take it on the right path, it's hard. The right path, you don't really see nobody wanting to go down the right path. That's just how it is. And I feel like God chooses a handful of people to try to walk down that right path. And what happens is as soon as you go through there, you have no idea what it looks like. But as soon as you step off and you go down that right path, it's just freedom. But you get there and it's not easy. As soon as you cross that line, there's oceans that you have to swim across. There's mountains you have to climb up, and there's jungles that you just have to go through. And you might see bits and people along the way of people who started. There's people here and there who need your help in order to get to the finish line. And not only they're there to help you, but you're there to help them. And God leading the path, and He knows how to take you. And some people might be there for a day. Some people might be there for 2 weeks. Some people might be there for 6 months or a year, 2 years, 10 years, 15 years. But they're all there struggling because they want to be the best person they can be. And at the top of the mountain, at the top of everything is the finish line. And as soon as you get there, you can go back and try to get people off that treadmill. That they're just walking in that straight line, the easy path, and you can work with God to bring another person down that hard path. But at the end of the hard path is you have authority over your life, and you have power, and you have freedom, and there's nothing else like it. And this brings me to the story today. And what God has been telling me to share with y'all is the story in the book of Daniel. It's going to be Daniel 3. And I'm going to read it to y'all, and I'm going to make little points along the way. So King Nebuchadnezzar made a gold statue 90 feet tall and 90 feet wide, and set it up on a plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then he sent messages to the high officers, officials, and governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, and all the province's officials to come up to the dedication of the statue he had set up. So all these officials came and stood before the statue King Nebuchadnezzar set up. Then a herald shouted out, "People of all races, nations, and languages, listen to the king's command. When you hear the sound of the horns, the flutes, the harp, the pipes, and all the musical instruments, bow to the ground and worship King Nebuchadnezzar's gold statue. Anyone who refuses to obey will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace." So at the sound of the musical instruments, all the people, whatever their race or nation or language, bowed to the ground and worshiped the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar set up. But some of the astrologers went to the king and informed him of the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "Long live the king! You issued a decree requiring all the people to bow down and worship the gold statue. When they hear the sound of the horns, the flutes, the harps, the pipes, and all the other musical instruments, that decree also states that those who refuse to obey must be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whom you have put in charge of the province of Babylon. They pay no attention to you, your majesty. They refuse to serve your gods and do not worship the gold statue you have set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar flew into a rage and ordered that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought before him. And when they were brought in, Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you refuse to serve my gods or to worship the gold statue I have set up? I will give you one more chance to bow down and worship the statue I have made when you hear the sound of the musical instruments. But if you refuse, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. And then what God will you be able to rescue you from the power?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into a blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty, but even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the statue you have set up." I just want to take that into consideration for a minute. There's probably thousands and thousands and thousands of people around, and they're all bowing down as soon as they hear the musical instruments, right? They're all bowing down before the king and this gold statue. And these three guys who have, they've been stripped of their names. King Nebuchadnezzar actually took away all their Jewish names and renamed them himself. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He had a specific name for each and every single one of them, and everyone has a meaning. They're stripped of their names. Everyone that they love were all killed from this guy, from King Nebuchadnezzar. And they still chose to stand up because they knew that they didn't agree with what he'd done and what he worshipped. And they're probably terrified of this guy because they've killed their entire families and gave him fake names. Like, that's just who this king was. He was very feared, and they still chose to not be like everybody else. And I feel like that's what God is telling me to talk about today, that if you want to be successful and you want to be a man of influence and you just want to be somebody who can help other people, you might have to be the one to stand up first. You might have to be the one to be different, to stand up and go your own separate way and shy away from the crowd and not just blend in and be a chameleon with people. If they didn't do that, I'm about to share with you the rest of the story, but God was able to use them in a miraculous and miracle way and really showed the power of God. And that's what he did. I'm going to finish the story real quick. Nebuchadnezzar was so furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that his face became disoriented with rage. He commanded that the furnace be heated 7 times hotter than usual. Then when he ordered some of the strongest men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace, so they tied them up and threw them into the furnace, fully dressed in their pants, their turbans, their robes, and their other garments. And because the king was angry, he demanded such a hot fire in the furnace. The flames killed the soldiers as they threw the 3 men in. So it was so hot, it actually killed the men throwing them in. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, securely tied, fell into the roaring furnace. But suddenly Nebuchadnezzar jumped up in amazement and exclaimed to his advisors, "Don't we tie up 3 men and throw them into the furnace?" "Yes, your majesty, we certainly did," they replied. "Look," Nebuchadnezzar shouted, "I see 4 men unbound, walking around in the fire unharmed. And the 4th looks like a god." Then Nebuchadnezzar came as close as he could to the door of the flaming furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out. Come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stepped out of the fire. Then the high officers, the officials, the governors, and advisors crowded around them and saw that the fire had not touched them. Not a hair on their head was singed, and their clothes was not scorched. They didn't even smell of smoke. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He sent his angels to rescue his servants who trusted in him, then defied the king's command and were willing to die rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I make this decree: if any people, whatever their race or nation or language, speak a word against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they will be torn limb from limb, and their houses will be turned into heaps of rubble. There is no other God who can rescue like this. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to an even higher position in the province of Babylon. And throw that into perspective real quick. God was able to use these three men to do the impossible, to do something that's never been done before. And I think at the time we're looking at it, it's in spite being scared and terrified when everyone else first off was bowing, they chose to stand and honor God. And what they did was serve with excellence. Them bowing down and them not bowing down, them standing up, it gave them a platform to have an audience to speak before the king. Living in excellence, I think everyone can do this. Everybody can live in excellence. You can do it where you work. You can do it where you're at right now. You can do it to the people around you. You know, you can stand up and be just a true role model for people to look up to. And by doing this, you can either rebuild or corrode people, and it gives you a platform that you're able to really just tell others about God. If they never did that, then they would have never been thrown into a furnace, and this story would have never even existed for other people. And whenever you stand up, you become visible, and you stand up for what you believe in. I think this story really gives you it really explains why God gives us trials, right? It gives you these tests, and he threw these guys in the furnace, and they were probably terrified, but they chose to stand up for what they believe in. And whenever they're thrown into the furnace, God didn't save them right away. He was always there, but if God just would have saved them and never threw them into the fire, then what would have happened? God may not save you from every single hard time, but he's going to bring you through it. And in going through it and going through the fire, what it does is it strengthens our faith. And in our faith is deepened, and our character is really strengthened, right? Because there's so many hard times that we've all probably gone through, but we're stronger because of it. Think about it in this way. If you want to be somebody successful and run a successful business, and you might be praying to God for that right now, what is God going to do? Well, first of all, you may not be a person who can run a successful business. So God has to throw these trials in your life and these tests. That way he can develop you into someone who can run a successful business. And I think that's what he's doing in this story. And every time that we walk through the fire or the struggles, God's always there with us. But what it does is it's growing and it's preparing you into someone who can do the impossible, and someone who can maybe even lead generations. This is what another story I wanted to share today. I don't know if you guys have heard it or not. This is a story about the first person to ever run a mile under 4 minutes. His name was Roger Bannister in 1954. In 1954, he became the first person to ever run a mile under 4 minutes. And many people considered this feat impossible. It says, according to legend and science, the human body wasn't capable of running a mile in under 4 minutes. And to just throw that in perspective for a minute, a lot of things are impossible until something happens, right? And you break that barrier, and it just opens up everybody else's mind. What we consider impossible may not actually be impossible. And once you achieve the impossible, it becomes a baseline for other people to live their lives. So this guy in 1954, Roger Bannister, was the first person ever to run a mile in under 4 minutes. And this was something that people tried to do and humans tried to do for thousands and thousands of years, and no one was able to do it. And I think the record for about 11 or 12 years was a 4:01, and it stood for such a long time until Bannister broke it, because it was modeled as impossible. But as soon as Robert Bannister broke this record, What happened 2 months later was somebody else broke it. Someone else running a little bit faster than Bannister did. And then a year later, 3 more people broke it. And then now it's like it happens every single year. Someone breaks the mile record and somebody runs under a 4-minute mile. And I used to run in college, so I know how hard that is. I ran like a 4:30 mile in college, and I can't even fathom running 30 seconds faster than that. That's just absolutely ridiculous. And I think it just goes to show what others believe to be the abilities, our abilities and our limitations has absolutely no bearing on how high we can take ourselves. So in Robert Bannister's mind, he believed it was possible, and he worked for it every single day, and he pushed and he pushed, and he literally did the impossible. And as soon as he did it, like, it broke everything else. Like, everyone else looked at it like, oh my God, like, he just did that? I think other people can do that too. I can do that too. Someone else can do that too. And it's just opens up a whole nother window. And I think you have to be that for somebody. There might be some people that are looking up to you right now, or that are seeing you. And you might have to do something that's never been done before. You might have to do the impossible. And as soon as you do it, sets a baseline like, he can do that. Why can't I do that? Right? And something else Robert Bannister did was he's able to create a certainty in himself without seeing any proof that it could even be done. And as soon as he did, the rest of the world saw it as possible. So he literally did something that everybody else claimed impossible. There was no proof it could even be done, and he still worked for it and pushed every single day and worked as hard as he possibly could to do it. And once he did, it broke an entire chain of beliefs, and it unlocked someone else's God-given potential. And I think that's what life is all about. Is whenever you have a clear and definite purpose, a mission, and when you live every moment in a state of certainty that you will achieve it, you're going to achieve it, and then you're going to be able to influence the multitude. And I think it was more so the mindset than it was the physicality or the physically being able to beat the mile. You know, it was impossible by science, and it was impossible by everyone who ever thought so. You know, that was in their mind already, that it wasn't able to be broken until Robert Bannister broke it. And it wasn't a physical feat. It was more so a mental feat. And it was a mindset. A mindset is required to be great. And I just really hope that some of you guys wake up, that some of you guys develop a mindset to influence a lot of people. Because right now there's someone that needs you. There's someone that needs to see you break the chains and need to see you do the impossible so that they can follow right behind you. And your impossible, or something that you do, that may be impossible, might be somebody else's baseline to do it, go and do something even greater. I just want to pray us out today. Dear God, thank you for today. Thank you for your words, God. God, I pray that you just equip somebody and ignite them to just be a man of influence and be someone who can break some generational curses and influence the multitude of people, God. God, I pray that you allow people to develop into someone who can lead others. And you just allow them to keep growing and keep working every single day to be their best possible self. And God, to do something that's impossible, because I feel like there's someone on the other side of this camera that are called to do the impossible, something that's never been done before, God. And I pray you give them the power to see that, to open their eyes and allow them just to wake up and start walking a life with you, God. And if there's someone listening to my voice who has never gave their life to God, or maybe today might be the first step in the right direction, or there might be somebody who just wants to rededicate their life to God today. I just want you to repeat after me. Less of me, God, and more of you. Less of me, more of you. Thank you for sending Jesus to die on the cross for me. God, I pray you just take away all my pain and my trauma and everything that I've been walking with, God. And there's times that I've been building my own kingdom, God, and you just take that away and let me just leave it with you, God, so that I can start walking in the right direction. God, fill me with peace and fill me with purpose. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Thank y'all for listening to the podcast. See y'all next week, and I hope you have a great day.